here, which is why you're here, which is this fundamental issue. It's peak oil. But this is peak fossil fuels. And this is done by Moore et al., some Australian guys, you know. And this is, unfortunately, I've got new lenses, so I now have to use glasses for close. So look, this is 2000. This is 2050. Now, this is their low, which I think is more likely to be correct for a variety of reasons. And this is gross, not net energy. This is not EROI. This is their best guess, and this is their ridiculously high estimate of coal, gas, and oil. And the data that we're getting indicates that this is probably about right, whether it's this or this. The point is that peak oil, nobody is worrying about peak oil because gasoline's cheap. And obviously, because of fracking, the technologists have solved the problems. The peak oilers were full of shit. That you don't have to worry about anything. The economists were correct because technology has come to the rescue. Issue closed. It is closed in national discussion and it is closed in global discussion. Although I talked to my friends in England and they're a little bit scared because well, not English in general, but a few scientists just think about it, because the North Sea oil for England is gone. You know, Margaret Thatcher gets all of this credit because her economic policies work. She just happened to be in charge when the North Sea oil came on, and now it's gone. And England's screwed. Kiss them goodbye. Okay, so I don't want to forget this. Now, I was born, let's see if I can do this. I was born there.
Full screen.
Presentation mode, Charlie.
Oh, but then I'll not get back to my real talk. Hello. Didn't help a lot. Now here's an independent analysis that says the same thing. I was born here. Where? Here. Can you see my arrow?
No. Presentation mode.
Get out of presentation mode.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Where's your laser?
They don't have one.
Get a pointer.
Where's the pointer?
Where's the
Give us a year.
Where's the help desk?
I was born in 1943.
All right.
Okay, see where that is? It's before 1950. Right now, it's just about at the top of that thing. Who's youngest? Any undergraduates here? There's some undergraduates here. Somewhere there were. You guys are going to have to live through the other half.
Sorry.
And we're not helping you. We're the only people who understand this, and we're sitting here fiddling while Rome is burning, although we have a lot of potential good things, Carrie's thing and David's thing and so forth. They're all potentially good, but we're not dealing with the future of the other side of that curve.
Some of us are, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Well, this is not my lecture. But it's not what I came here to talk about, but I thought I would make that point.
Charlie, you wrote a book for the second half of the Age of Oil, actually a couple of them.
Yeah?
So that's not helping the situation?
No. I can't get out of this thing. This is why I didn't want to go into... Okay, here's my talk. I hope it's my talk. Come on. Oh, go into presentation mode. You go. Okay. Okay. This is by myself and Jean Lorette. who's not here, but here in spirit. Looks like we got age spots on ours. Added by your system here. Well, that's appropriate. And this is here from this, is that mathematician here? Where?
No.
I need him. Because this is all about this. This is what is called a Hubbert curve. Traditional Hubbert curve by M. King Hubbert, we'll talk about him. It's the production of a resource over time, starts very low, and it grows exponentially initially as people learn how to exploit it, and they learn more and more uses for it. It reaches some kind of a peak around the middle, and then it goes down the other side, and we have less experience with this, but we do have some. That's going to be really important. Now, the cumulative that we use, the integral of this looks like this. It would have to be higher if it were on the same axis, but it looks like that. That's very simple. That's a logistic curve. All right, so what I'm going to give you today is a new kind of Hubbert curve that's was generated by Hubbert and is not, to my knowledge, anywhere in the reviewed literature, although I just found a big and incorrect discussion of it on the peak oil, on the old ASPO site. What was it called? Oil drum, yeah. And it was published obscurely in the middle of a great big analysis done by the US government. And this is what it is, and I can send it to anybody who happens to be interested in this. And I was hoping the mathematician would be here, because it's a really great mathematical problem. Mathematicians spend so much time analyzing curves that have no meaning. This is the most important curve that we have, what I'm going to show you. I have lost a great deal of sleep in the last 6 months. My wife is smiling because I'm trying to figure out the mathematics of this. And I think I did yesterday, which is interesting. This is Hubbert. Where is this? How does this work? Here's Hubbert when he was young and handsome. I knew him fairly well. So I am bringing Hubbert to you personally in a certain sense. We were both stuck in Detroit once, and I spent 10 hours with him one-on-one. I got notes from that. I don't know where they are. But, and he told me his life story. Now, this is a Hubbert curve. This. It's what it looked like for the United States. The green is for the lower 48, and the red includes Alaska. The triangles were what Hubbert predicted in 1955. And he predicted that in 1955 that there would be a peak in 1970, and there was. And so he fortunately he died before the fracking came along, but we'll talk about it. And so this is the Hubbert curve, and Hubbert was a little bit low in his estimates, but good Lord, who's going to argue about that? And he was doing it for the lower 48. This is the situation now. It's all changed because of what's called horizontal drilling and fracking. And I'll show you what this is. And because of horizontal drilling and fracking, this is just for the lower 48. And the curve, because of that, without that would be the red line. And with this so-called, I'm just going to call it fracked, oil and also gas. That's why this morning people were talking about this cheap gas to displace coal. our children, and especially our grandchildren, are really going to be angry at us. What? You used gas to make electricity when you could have used coal? We needed it for fertilizer. We needed it for plastics. Good plastics, not bad plastics. Good plastics. We needed it for petrochemicals. You just burned it. Were you crazy? Well, what has the future ever done for us? Yeah, what is posterity?
Posterity.
Okay, so here is the global curve. Have we had peak oil? Well, according to what the peak oil people were talking about, and I'm talking now about Larare and Campbell, for example, in their 1998, and going back to Hubbert, that's the blue or purple line on the bottom, yes. If we include unconventional oil, some people do, U.S. Energy Information Agency does, you get the green or the orange curve. The green, the top one, I'm sorry, the blue, green curve on the top should be, is this red curve here. That's what we've got from fracking. It ain't much. But it has turned everybody's minds around that we don't have peak oil. This little, what we in biology call pissant bit of light tight oil has changed everybody's mind about the real state of the world. The real state of the world is we're screwed. Oh, no, you guys are wrong. You guys keep talking about this. You guys, you know, you're the ones who, you're the Cassandras, you know, you're talking all the time about these terrible things that are going to happen. Don't forget, Cassandra was right. Not as soon as she said. That's a mistake. Like with Dennis Meadows' models, they're right. Just got to get the timing on it right. Okay, most of the difference is what's called this ultra-deep oil. Hubbert had no concept that we could get oil from very deep in the ocean and greater than 500 meters. Okay. Let's talk now about fracked oil or shale oil and gas or light type oil and gas, and then we're going to talk about the second great idea Hubbert had. This is the formations we'll talk about. The first one to be done, it's not even on here, is Barnett, which is sort of East Permian on this map. We'll show you more precisely. Eagle Ford, that's where Kerry lives, more or less. Bakken, big deal. Niobrara, not a big deal. Appalachia is better called Marcellus and Utica. Look at them. These are oil fields. They're huge. Now, let me tell you a little bit about oil. Oil is made when there was some geological event, usually at the edge of a continent in the bottom of the ocean, in which you go, there he is. You missed some of it. So you get a bunch of organic material, ideally in a graben or a trench. Goes down to the bottom. The earth has to be very warm so the water doesn't circulate, so it doesn't oxidize. The organic matter accumulates on the bottom. Then you got to have a big rainy period, a lot of sediments. You got to fill it with 10,000 feet of sediments, and you got to pressure cook it for 100 million years. And you get oil. Very rare event in history. Now, most of the oil ever found down here in what are called the source rocks went up to the surface and into the atmosphere. Probably 99% of oil ever found went into the atmosphere. But the 1% that we get runs society. Now, that oil, mostly what we get comes from traps. As it's going up, because it's light, oil floats on water, oil's going up through the substrates, and if it's caught in a fault or an anticline that's impermeable or salt dome, you get it there, you can drill a hole right down into it, and it's going to be gas, oil, water. Put your spigot in the right place and suck it out, and there you have it. Now oil in the ground isn't like oil you pour in your engine. It's like an oil-soaked brick. And you got to push the oil through the formation. And you normally get, for regular oil, 35%. For this stuff, you get about 5% would be a good return. It's low permeability and low porosity. Here's just another view that gives more explicit names. There's the Barnett, right there above the Eagle Ford. And there's what they call Appalachian. Doesn't matter. I'm sorry,
Charlie, those are the source rocks, right?
Yeah,
It's
oh,
not
I'm sorry, I
traps.
didn't finish that. That's very good.
Yeah.
This is source rocks, essentially. And they're huge. They're huge. Look at all the bloody oil we got. That's the official message from the U.S. Energy Information Agency to the rest of us. It's not that simple. Now, I'm sorry this is out of focus, but it takes about 1,000 semi-trucks worth of stuff to do one of these fracking sites. There's an oil well in the middle, and there's a lot of giant semi-trucks. Beat the hell out of the roads here in Pennsylvania to do this, and you got to have all this water. The sand comes almost always from a certain small area in Michigan, just right. And then originally they'd put 10 fire trucks in series, not parallel, in series, to increase the pressure. They drill down, they've got its incredible technology. They turn the bit, they go through the substrate 2 miles. They put a special pipe through it that's filled with 30-06 shells. They shoot the bullets into the rock. That starts the fracking. And then they get these 10 fire trucks to pump water in and push the rocks apart. And then they squirt in sand and some other horrible chemicals to hold the little bits of rock apart. And then you get quite a bit of oil. But it drops off like this. So after 2 years, you've got 80% of your oil. Kerry could probably say these more precisely than I, but that's a basic idea.
80% of the 5%.
80% of the 5%. And maybe it's 80% of the 5% times 0.5, because it's not clear at all. There's lots of things that are going wrong now that we're not going to talk about, such as when they shoot the next horizontal, they interfere with the first one and the bullets go through the existing pipes. Seriously, go through the existing pipes and they start leaking, and I could cut all kinds of horror stories. Now, I didn't know much about this. So my wife and I used to drive out to Montana from New York, from not too far from here, in the summer, and I wanted to figure out what was going on. Oops. And this is what we saw. Trucks all over the place. Now, they're using a lot of petroleum, but it isn't much compared to what they get. And like this, and this is, I first learned the word sweet spot. We'll talk a lot about sweet spots. Now, this is Midland, Texas. Those are all oil wells. So this substrate of oil is down there, and they're going down and getting it. They're just, I don't know how to, it's like the guy who got the idea, you know, the straws that are bent like this. His son was sucking out of a sundae with the straw upside down. That's how we got the idea. And it's why oil isn't $10 a gallon now. Why gasoline isn't $10 a gallon now. Great technology. Now look how abrupt it ends. Look at the wells and wells and wells, and there's the end. That's why aren't they drilling over there? It's part of that map of the sweet spot. I just flew over this in North Dakota, coming here, and took a picture or two, and it's amazing. I'll show you, it's even more amazing than that. That's what it looks like. I just flew right over, just above the Missouri River, just over the top of the Missouri River, looking down on that. And let's look at another picture. This is what somebody's taken a satellite map and drawn in the laterals. Look at that. So that's about as close as you can get them. But they're now doing, in Montrose County, infill drilling, which means, look here, instead of going to Williams County, they are drilling again in Montrose County because that's where the best oil is. We're already going back to the original places and putting in new lines in between existing lines rather than go to the next county.
Are these all at the same depth?
Yeah, well, yes, essentially. And you know, you've got 100 feet or whatever, 80 feet of play that gives this. Play, I gotta use that word play, is the Bakken play, the Eagle Ford play is a region from which you're getting oil. Could be a country, Chinese play, I suppose, but usually just an area. Now this is the different places that we're getting, in this case gas, works for oil and works for gas. And this is the conventional gas, which you see is going down, 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 down. That's from just going down like that. And this is all of the different areas of frac gas. Now the US EIA has these reports they put out every year, and they say lots of gas, lots of oil. Here's what it looks like. Just goes off into the future. Most of that is shale gas, is from these formations. Okay.
Charlie?
Yeah.
Go back one slide. Like you've got this big thing of shale gas, but then when you had your Hubbert curves, the stuff from
This is
oil-
projection now, this is not data.
Oh, okay, from tight oil was really
Oh, yeah.
small, yet the
Just-
projection is really big.
Not my projection. Now this, for those of us who've been in this game, anybody been in the oil game for a long time? Nobody. What the hell are you not being in the oil game? Remember the ZAP hypothesis? ZAP hypothesis made in 1958 is that we will continue to find oil at 118 barrels per foot we drill, because that's what they found up to 1968 or whatever it was, and then multiply that by how many feet we're going to drill, and we're going to get oil indefinitely. Hubbert said, wait a minute, you don't continue to get 118 barrels per foot. It's going to decline as we suck out the best places. And let me tell you, we did that. And so it's been going down like this. So this is the same idea. In EIA reports now, they are not doing an analysis, a correction for moving off the sweet spots. They're just taking what we're getting now, and a lot of the stuff I get from Art Berman, Art's really, really really smart guy. And I've sent out, those of you who are on my energy listserv, and if you're not, you give me your email with ELS on it and I'll add you. But why are they still drilling? Because since 2010, the shale companies have lost $268 million. Billion dollars. $268 billion. But they're still drilling. And I tried to figure what the hell's going on, and I think I got it. Two things are going on. The government is keeping interest rate at approximately zero. So money doesn't cost you anything, why not spend it? Drilling oil wells. And it's a vast Ponzi scheme. Y'all know what a Ponzi scheme is? Okay. I did it when I was an undergraduate not far from here. I sent out a quarter to the person at the top of the list. You know? You're supposed to get a lot of quarters into the future. Well, that's a Ponzi scheme. Mr. Ponzi was an Italian guy who played the stock market very well. All of life is a Ponzi scheme. So that's one reason you have to do energy analysis.
It wasn't the stock market.
It wasn't? What was it?
Just my wife's grandfather.
I'd like to hear
I'll
the story.
explain it to anyone afterwards.
I'd certainly like to hear it myself. So the Ponzi scheme is, you know, you just keep getting people buying in, and you pay the early people with the money from the later people. And that's what they're doing with the shale oil. Now we got to do better math. This is my favorite cartoon. See that? Or we could tally sheep like this, you know, on writing. So we got to do better, do our math better. Hubbert came up with this. Now, Hubbert originally didn't understand what he was doing very well. And he said, well, Q is the cumulative quantity we're produced. Some point we won't produce anymore from a well, a field, a play, a country, whatever. And so he, you know, didn't we see this morning? Where's Tom?
Back there.
He's talking.
Oh, there he is, yeah. Hey, Tom, pay attention. You recognize this? So this is how Hubbert decided the production of a non-renewable resource would look over time. It would be a bell-shaped curve. The reason he gave was, as I said earlier, the development earlier of the technology, and then exponential growth and uses for it increased till about half of the resource had been used. He said about half. There can be two peaks. And then a mirror image on the other side. We have a lot of experience with this and not a lot of experience with that. And he said, how much will we get? The question is, how big is the area under the curve? Is it going to be this big? Is it going to be this big? Or is it going to be this big? He didn't explain. And the original stuff he did was counting squares. The original thing he did was counting squares and drawing with a French curve. Remember the French curve? It's the thing you could bend any way you wanted. That's my type of math. And then eventually he came along and he said, well, the logistic looks good. And we use the logistic in biology, and there's a really interesting reason biologically that we can do it. And he predicted what the area would be by guessing how much the squares would be. And we always thought he was guessing. But in this special paper in 1982 that everybody was unaware of, he came up with a technique of doing it. And what he did was come up with this idea of a Hubbert linearization. And I've just learned of this and become obsessed with it. And what it is you look at the annual production over time over the cumulative production, and you plot it versus the cumulative production, it will intercept 0 at the integral of this curve. It will tell you the EUR, the estimated ultimate recovery. Okay, well, will it? So, here's some data he gave, but he didn't explain what it was. So, okay, let's get back to actual data. Or get to actual data. This is, we have very few examples of plays that are completely depleted. Here's one, Pennsylvania anthracite. And so, over time, the production curve looks like that. The Hubbert linearization looks like this. And it predicts the integral of that curve within a few percent. Now you got to realize that all of our predictions of ultimate EUR are within hundreds of percent of one another. If you look from one year to the next of the federal government and so forth, this is within a few percent. And the amazing thing to me, I can't believe this, is see where the red is? That's back in about where that dip is on the ups. Before the peak, they are predicting the integral of the curve. Wow! All of a sudden, we have a means, not perfect, of predicting how much oil or gas or coal we're going to get out of a play. How well does it work? Now here's the predictions. The green ones are the ones made by the U.S. Geological Survey. The red ones, starting way back there, are the ones that are made from Hubbert linearization. Hubbert linearization, over a period of 100 years, gave the right answer. Even before the peak. Even before the USGS conceived that there would be a peak for Pennsylvania anthracite. East Texas oil, the second largest oil field we had in the United States. The earlier predictions from the Hubbert linearization are actually better than the more recent ones. So we don't, how many of these completely depleted fields do we have? Here's the same one for the Brent sweet oil. You all have heard of that, right? It's gone. They don't get a barrel a year out of Brent anymore. It's gone. And the Hubbert linearization predicted that back in 1990, and in the first 10 years of the oil field. Isn't that amazing? Oh, here's Brent. This is, and you know, it's not perfect, and there is some tendency for the final EUR to increase over time. In about, just seat of my pants, 20%. Most of the time, it's within 10 to 30%, usually 10%. And you look at what I'm going to show you. Now here's the data. And you only get this Hubbert linearization. This is where I need some mathematical help. Somebody who can do math lab or something well. You don't get it from steady production. You don't get it from a constant increase in production, which is the problem with this analysis that was done by Bob Rapier that was in Oil Drum. He made an artificial thing. You get it only from a normal curve. So the thing I finally realized last night, the issue isn't why does Hubbert linearization give you the right answer. Everything comes back to this. The question is, why is production of a resource Why does it follow a normal curve, usually, normally? That's a very, very interesting mathematical question, and how many variants in a normal curve or the first derivative of an S-shaped curve will give you the Hubbert linearization and give you the accurate answers. Shale gas. Now let's look at the data. Here is the Barnett. This is where it started. The Barnett has already peaked and gone halfway down. In the Hubbert linearization, not great, but at least since just before the peak, has given you what looks like a pretty good estimate of the EUR, estimated ultimate return. Fayetteville, look at that. This is why you're not burning coal, because we have so much natural gas. Well, excuse me, we've already had a peak gas. And incidentally, with John Halleck and some others, I have analyzed 42 oil-producing countries, and let me tell you, the Hubbert curve is alive and well. It really, really works, unless, like Saudi Arabia or Kuwait, it's constrained by political, or the Texas Railroad Commission, it's constrained by political events. And Haynesville, well, I don't know, we got a second hump. How do we analyze that? Yeah.
On the far right lower, where do you get the line that comes off of the point?
This?
Yeah.
Yes. No, yes, that's what we said.
Oh, but
All right.
Why are there two?
Hmm?
Is the prediction done at different times and that's what it's going with?
Well, something happened. Now, this is one of the few examples, almost no examples, that price changes the Hubbert linearization. This was during an increase in price for gas.
okay, so to get a line, you need 2 points. So where do you
Yeah.
get the 2 points?
The assumption is it's parallel to the first one.
Okay.
Okay? And the assumption is that these are going to be normal curves. And okay, that's that's why I want you here.
Yeah.
And that's Jean Laraire's. Now, well, how about this one? This is worse. What happens before the peak? Well, the amazing thing is before the peak, you get a fairly stable Hubbert linearization. Right? Now, look, we got a 30% error there. Maybe larger by the time, or like East Texas, maybe it'll pop back down. Don't know how to analyze that. But the Utica is fairly early, but it looks like it's settling down to a Hubbert linearization. This versus the ZAP hypothesis. So I will not tell you this is the greatest thing that ever came along analytically, but I can tell you it's a whole lot better than what we use otherwise. This is for Woodford, okay, and then this incidentally is a paper that Nature has just refused to review. Maybe for good reasons.
Refused to review or refused?
Here's another one. This is all natural gas production in the United States. This is a lot less natural gas than you get from the USGS. In fact, it implies that we've used 1,400 tera cubic feet versus 2,400, which we think is the ultimate. Let's look at oil. And here's the prediction, and I think it's better than this, but this is what John sent me. The thin brown line is his estimate of total natural gas, and the different colored lines are from USGS. Sometimes it's higher, rarely, sometimes it's lower. And incidentally, this is by their what's called 2P method, which is much better than the ZAP hypothesis. We'll live with the 2P method. Okay, light tight oil, it's the same thing. And this is Bakken. Now, I got a new Bakken. I thought it would, oh, there, you see, we had predicted the peak. I think I've got the right, that's February and this is March. And the data actually followed our prediction. That's luck. Oh, no, I don't think it was luck. I think we understand something fundamental here. Here is Eagle Ford. According to this, it's half depleted. Carrie, can that be true?
Well, it's not depleted because it's still sitting there. It's not half depleted. So,
Well, production.
It's a question of how much you're going to pull out. Right?
Could that be
It'll
true?
never deplete.
I got an explicit way of doing it. And here's Permian. Permian, we know less about. It's a newer field. And we don't know which one of these. And, you know, we got a lot of questions. Now, when you add all on the light tight for the EUR estimate of the United States, Hubbert predicted 180. And now we're predicting from conventional oil, from the Hubbert linearization, I don't know, 200, 220. And now we've got the light tight oil. It's got a hiccup on this, substantial one. But it isn't anything compared to conventional oil. So adding the light tight oil to the cumulative production estimate, you get the green line instead of the brown line. So here is our estimates. These are the numbers. I'll send this stuff to you if you want. If you don't, spread it. And the basic thing is that the USGS, the Energy Information Agency, predicts from 3 to 14 times more oil and gas than we get from the Hubbert linearization. And it's explicit. May not be right, but it's explicit. You can check it. You can't check their analyses. You can't find out where their balance sheets are. And these are our predictions. And I'd like to say that we're pretty close to what David Hughes says. And he's really good at analyzing the shale oil. And he does a lot of sweet spot analysis and conclusions. We were wrong when forecasting the peak of the world conventional oil production in the 2000 or so. We predicted 2005 because there was a new technology, and the new technology came along and it made a difference, no question. But it isn't a game changer. It's an extender, a hamburger extender. And so our forecasts are much less than anybody else. We can be wrong, but our methods are explicit. We put it out there. And if this is true, then the United States is going to be on its back within 5 to 10 years with respect to oil. Even now, we import about a quarter to a third of the oil we use. People think we're exporting. I think that's it.